Bang! Look at that. We had some technical difficulties, but as we are live, 23 minutes after the hour, we have the fantastic Coach Jay Izzo with us today. Who, the way he's dressed, he looks like he's an extra off Yellowstone. And then we have the fantastic Joe Brocato with us. And I am, of course, Jigman Freud, Jignatius Jaguar. And this is going to be quite the show today. So without further ado, I'm gonna let the master of ceremonies, Mr. Jay Izzo. He's not like Coach Prime with the $1 billion sunglass deal,
No.
but Jay Izzo is still a coach and is doing phenomenal things. Go ahead, Jay. What's up, baby?
Thanks, Jiggy. Listen, I want to, first of all, it's great to be on the show. As always, being on the Jiggy Jaguar experience. Love being here. This is a treat for me. I get to do this show with you. And then, of course, we get to bring on a guest like Joe Brocato, who is absolutely phenomenal. And I've interviewed him once, and I get to interview him again, and I'm excited about doing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you to Joe Brocato. Joe Brocato is a business development thought leader, life coach, and award-winning attorney with more than 30 years of experience generating millions of dollars in business. He's worked with some of the most prominent companies and individuals in the world. He is a regular contributor to Forbes.com as a member of Forbes Business Development Council and the author of Happy is Cool: How to Ignite the True Happiness in You, among other books. And we're going to talk about his last book today. Hit It Off is his most recent effort. 21 Rules for Mastering the Art and Science of Relationships in Life and Business. It's fabulous, folks. Telling you it's for every person, every stage of life. Joe has reached international audiences, writing for other major publications, including the Huffington Post, CEO World magazine, speaking for leading companies such as Citibank, Live Nation, House of Blues, and guesting on radio shows like AM 560's The Answer and Outlaw Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Jiggy Jaguar experience, the Jiggy Jaguar show, Jigman Freud show. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Brocato. Welcome, Joe.
It's good to be here. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome.
Other than our delay, I think, James, you mentioned that we were 23 minutes late, and if I had a subtitle of the book, 23 Rules for Mastering the Art and Science of Relationships in Life and Business, we would have hit it right on the 23-minute mark, right after we're supposed to start. So maybe the next edition of the book will change it to 23 Rules.
I love that. All right, Joe, listen, your book, in your introduction, here's what you say right out of the gates, and I love this. You said, our objective in building relationships should be to focus on everyone's need for human connection. If we do that, we can establish truly unique and long-lasting relationships with people. And when that happens, we have a better chance of achieving our goals in life, whether they be personal and business. Why is it that we get so off track about trying clever things to build our business in life rather than just going right to the source, and that is build relationships? Why don't we start there instead of trying all these other things?
Well, I think everybody has to answer that for themselves in terms of why they don't do that. As a general point, I think that we're in an age now of massive distraction. We have forces coming at us left and right, distracting us from, in many cases, what's really important in life, from our authenticity and who we are deep down inside at our core, at our essence, to defining authentic goals for our lives and for our businesses. And then unfortunately, we're human beings. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're human beings which have weaknesses. We let things like pride and greed and a lust for power in many cases get in the way of really efficiently going about achieving goals in life. And a lot of that stuff is unfortunate, but I believe that we have control over our environment. I'm an optimist in that regard. It's a big part of the thesis of the book that we can master these things that will allow us to better effectively communicate, to assess information, to come to the table in a relationship objectively, That's what critical thinking is all about. So we put aside the distraction when we're present in the moment.
We were going so good. And we lost Joe there for a second.
We lost Joe Brocato for just a second.
He was on a roll. He was on a roll. He was doing so awesome. And now he's frozen.
He was like shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, and then now he's frozen in time somewhere.
Now he's frozen in time, where like the villains at the beginning of the
I know
of Superman 2. They're in their little.
This is a note for everybody that if you ever want to do radio or you want to do anything live, or even if you don't want to do it live, here's something that you should know. You should know that technology is an awesome thing. It is a fantastic thing. It makes our lives easier in so many ways.
Yes.
Here's the problem. When technology fails us, we are helpless to the technology.
Yes.
James and I right now are filling time, and as we could see, our guest went bye-bye. And
it's called vamping, as they say.
We are vamping. Yes, we are vamping here.
I love that though, but you are correct. Technology is an amazing thing, but
yes.
when technology fails, we're like the caveman. We can't rub the rocks together to get fire. It just
if you're watching us live right now, you are seeing how helpless TV people feel when all of a sudden it just goes south, and it just goes. And so
Ron will read whatever you feed him into the prompter.
Right. It will. Yes, we will read whatever you want in the prompter. We're gonna try to bring Joe back again here. Try to bring Joe back in on stage. Let's see here. There he is. There's Joe. We're gonna bring him back in.
Talk about being in the present moment. When you miss a number of moments.
Yes, we brought you back. You were on such a roll.
I was. I guess
you were. Well, so let me pick up though something that you said,
sure.
And you use this word a lot, and it's called mastery.
Yes.
And when it comes to relationships and mastery, how do we make that connection? Because to me, I mean, it feels like an ongoing journey.
It is. Mastery, the way I really look at this is, taking control of your environment, thinking critically about what's going on in the interpersonal dynamic when we're developing relationships with people. And like I was saying, in terms of distractions, there's a lot of distractions. Our phones are distractions, the TV, all the messaging from the media, all the economic pressures that we're faced with. There's a lot of anxiety and depression in the world, a lot of mental health issues. And so that's a lot for all of us to digest. And when we're trying to establish that human connection, it really takes a little bit of discipline. And that's what the book is intended to do. Help us have some discipline over how we conduct ourselves. And when you have that mastery, when you take control of your environment, you're much more likely to put yourself on a pathway to actually achieve your goals much more efficiently, whatever that goal might be.
I love the fact that you introduced discipline. I'm a big fan of discipline because, it's like a diet. We should never go on a diet, because a diet means if you go on a diet, you're going to get off of it at some point. But you have to do a lifestyle, and a lifestyle requires discipline every day. And I think relationships, at least in terms of how I read this book, and I think it's such an appropriate term, that you have to be disciplined in this. I mean, let's just take one of the simple things that you have in rule number 1, eye contact. And the title of rule number 1 is take a fresh look at eye contact to convey emotion. it does require discipline to maintain eye contact, but it's powerful, isn't it, Joe?
Well, it is. That's why it's the first rule, because it's one of the first things we do, if not the first thing we do when we meet someone for the first time. And studies have shown that we tend to make snap judgments about people in the first 2 seconds. So, the ability to be able to hit it off with someone is critical in life and in business. And when we're maintaining the right appropriate level of eye contact off the bat, you're much more likely, according to the science, trigger something in the other person to register that as a trustworthy individual, someone who's willing to look at you in the eye. We've heard that phrase a million times, but the science bears out there's truth to that. And you don't want to maintain too much or too little. When you're speaking with people, you don't want to be staring off. These are things that if you don't do it the right way, you're going to end up with a train wreck. And in the book, as you guys know, I have a number of train wreck stories about people who either I have experienced or stories that I've heard around people who do.
Oh, we were so good. This was so good, James.
Speaking of train wrecks. Speaking of train wrecks.
We train wrecked again. We had a
I love that.
Isn't this awesome? You can hear him trying to talk so much. He's trying so hard.
You can hear it. You can hear it.
Yeah. But at least he's got a big smile on it. Yeah.
Well, that too. If you are watching us live on StreamYard or any number of places, however you consume this video, he does have a nice smile on his face.
He does. And James, again. Again, I think this is important for those of you who want to get into podcasting, radio, or TV. You need to know. You need to know that these things happen, and you cannot let these things bother you. I mean,
no.
Are they uncomfortable? They used to be. Now you just accept it because and there goes Joe. And now we just accept it because it's a part of our life now that we know that technology is not going to be work the way we want it to always work. And that's kind of the challenge that you and I get to face periodically. Because you've had these problems before.
Oh, I've had these problems many a times. I've had guests who don't know time zones, and they'll call when I'm in the middle of interviewing another guest, or they'll call when I'm supposed to go to I'm supposed to go to a guest. I've got the notes in front of me. I'm ready to go, and I go to the telephone, and they've called ahead, and I go to introduce them, and they're like, "Oh no, it's not Andy, it's Sandy," and I'm like, "Sandy, you're supposed to be on in 15 minutes, not now."
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, did I get the time wrong?" Well, yeah, you get the time wrong because you're on right now. Joe, you're back, baby.
I am back. I'll tell you, I was starting to tell a story about a train wreck. And we're experiencing
yes,
right now. But rule number 21 is remain positive. Positivity.
Yes.
Right? That's the key.
Yeah, remaining positive is so huge because as we were talking about while you were frozen and then left and returned as a second coming or maybe even a third coming. But the truth of the matter is there are going to be times even in relationships where things get intermittent, they get disturbed, and you've got to remain positive. And maybe it falls into rule number 2, always thinking about the end in mind and reversing your way back through the relationship.
Yeah, we, in the science, they refer to this as future retrospection, where you really work methodically backwards from your end vision. We use this a lot in business with developing business plans, business development plans, where, instead of, having some nebulous thought as to where you want to end up and starting today and just kind of muddling your way through, leaving really your success to fortuity, which is never a good business model. You really start at the end. You have a crystal clear goal in mind. It could be a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever that is, and then methodically work backwards, maybe a week, 6 months, a year, 2 years to today with an immediate action item or items. That way you move forward very thoughtfully. This again, applying critical thinking and mindfulness to how you achieve goals in a relationship, whether it's a business goal, like I just described from a business development standpoint, getting new customers, getting new clients, or in any other relationship in your personal life.
Rule number 4, and this is one I think is most difficult for all of us, is consciously listen and build acceptance. I think we all know that we should listen, be better listeners, but we don't think about the building acceptance piece. Help us bridge that gap.
It's as simple as everybody wants to be heard. It ties into the rule around respect. All these rules tie together. We have kind of grown accustomed, for whatever reason, many of us, to thinking that listening is a passive act. We speak and we listen all the time. That's great, but that's very passive. So if you change the way you think about this and start thinking more proactively.
Oh, it was so good. This was so good. If we start listening more proactively. I was listening
proactively.
Right, proactively. I'm trying to do that right now.
And you were doing it proactively.
I'm trying to listen proactively right now. I'm trying to be proactive in this whole situation here. Trying to figure out what can I do? How can I, I know I'm being reactive on some level, but at the same time, I'm like going, can I be proactive here while being reactive? By the way, Joe, again,
What's
great look.
What's great is I've been over here taking notes while he's talking, and then I'm like, uh-oh, he stopped talking. And then I look up and I'm like, oh no.
Who knew that we could do a show? Who knew that you and I could do a show like this and maintain our sanity and sense of humor? I mean, there's got to. I haven't even looked if anybody's making. I haven't even looked if anybody's making comments. I know that there's people giving us thumbs ups and are watching right now. And there goes Joe again. He'll be back. I promise you that. Joe's back again, and we'll be seeing him in a bit. But who knew that we could do?
We'll be seeing him in a bit.
I mean, we could. I mean, if we want to, we could go into fantasy football right now.
You're amazing.
You can.
Well, one of the things, and I just am amazed. You mentioned fantasy football. One of the things that amazes me is the fact that Deion Sanders has taken over the world. You can't turn on YouTube. You can't turn on anywhere without seeing this guy.
He's amazing. Okay, here comes Joe. Here comes Joe in our little break. We're about to bring him back on here. Here comes Joe Brocato.
If you guys worked in commercials every time that happened, you make a lot of money.
Right? We were going to go into our fantasy football segment, considering that James doesn't even play fantasy football. Is what we were going to do there, and we did.
And then if we were planning on doing the pets corner here in a few.
Yeah, we have the pets corner, but then James got stuck on Deion Sanders and Coach Prime, so. Okay. So we got Coach, we got Joe Brocato, otherwise known as Coach Prime 2, with us here, talking about his book, Hit It Off.
That's right.
trying to
hit it off. 21 rules for mastering the art and science of relationships in life and business. And if you have been following us right now, we have spent the last 30 minutes on 2 rules. You'll be here till next Tuesday, getting through Rule 21. Which will be awesome as well. We'll have a good time with that. You know what? There is a rule though. I'm trying to remember which number it is. It's the rule number 8. Use humor to convey a similar worldview. And it is true though, isn't it, Joe, that humor is really it's really important for relationships.
It really is. I love to laugh. At one point I considered being a sit-down comic, but I realized that I just didn't have what it took. But I really do like to laugh. And what the science bears out is that so does everybody else. It seems fairly simple, but when we are consciously aware of, that concept in a discussion with someone, it really helps to allow people to reflect their common values. The humor has to be appropriate. It has to, really reflect the type of person that you are. I personally am not one for canned humor. I don't like canned jokes. Maybe at some point I'll take a stand-up class, sit-down class, lay-down class. The bottom line is, for me, I'm more about situational humor. So I like taking a situation, and I'm thinking all the time, it's almost natural. Just how can I inject a little comment here or there that just lightens the mood? It doesn't even have to be like, belly, pumping funny, but it's something that you really have fun with. And that's the key. It's having fun. It's lightening the mood. And it's really interrupting someone's pattern as well, whether it's in business or whether it's in a personal setting, just lighten the mood a little bit. And the science shows that actually brings people together, which is the whole point, right? Building that human connection in a way to maximize the likelihood of establishing trust, establishing rapport, establishing shared interests, so you can actually help each other to achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think the other piece of the science that you talk about in this particular chapter on humor is that my wife said this. In fact, she says what attracted me was that you were funny, and the science bears out that we are more attractive to people when we do have humor involved.
Well, I think I've been attracted to people because I'm funny looking. So that's always been my forte. So yeah.
Well, I don't think, I have said this about myself, and I will say it about James. I'm not going to say it about you, but look, I have a face for radio. Okay. Why we're doing it this way, I don't know, but I do have a face. James, you have a face for radio. Just let's be honest. It's the reason you hide behind the microphone. So it's all good there, brother. As he just sits there kind of in his own little world. That's all good. All right, he's nodding.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go
completely understand. Completely agree.
Yes, you should. Let's talk about number 10, harness emotional intelligence to effectively navigate social interactions. A lot of work by Daniel Goleman, Dr. Goleman, on emotional intelligence. Talk to us about how emotional intelligence helps us navigate our social interactions. And with that question, Joe said, hold on here. I'm frozen up, and I'm sure he's talking. We'll get back to him. We'll get back to him in a moment.
He's frozen in thought, literally, figuratively, and
on the air, frozen as well.
He is.
You spoke about Deion Sanders. That is a fascinating thing of what he's been able to accomplish there. I mean, he got rid of basically almost the whole team. I mean, he got rid of the whole team, and then here he brings on, and there goes Joe, and then he brings on 84 new people, and it's amazing. And he, it really, when you think about the art and science of relationships, what he's done with those kids to build those relationships.
Yeah.
And get them to respond. He took a thumping from Oregon, right? But Oregon got really smart, and Oregon got smart and decided to say nothing. And then I've heard that people were feeding Oregon all sorts of film.
Yes.
Yeah, it was what I heard. But you had something exciting happening.
Everybody decided, hey, let's help them.
Yeah. You had something though exciting happen in Kansas, where you're from, in Kansas City. Taylor Swift was cheering.
Oh yeah, the Taylor Swift. Yeah,
we'll get to that.
I just know her as she used to be pro wressler Jeff Jarrett's babysitter. But
gotcha.
I just know her as that.
And we have
Joe Brocato, I believe.
Yes,
I'm back.
Double thumbs up all the way.
At least everybody's used to this now. I'm going to be back. And
yeah, you get to do a rule. You get to do a rule. You get to go to the bathroom, take a break, come back. You're good, man. It's all good. Now, rule 10: harness emotional intelligence to effectively navigate social interaction. Let's talk about that and how emotional intelligence is really fundamentally important to our relationship building.
Well, I was at a dinner recently where there were 5 people, 4 people in addition to me, and the waiter had poured our cocktails, wine in this case, and the person next to me, a gentleman, while the waiter was starting to, and I had just met this individual, by the way, for the first time that evening, and before the waiter left, he was telling us what the specials were, and while the waiter was talking, the guy sitting next to me started making a toast. Right when the guy was talking, the waiter had to walk away, very embarrassingly. It was very odd. That's low emotional intelligence, unfortunately. That's one example of not really understanding what's going on in a situation. And we all witness things like this. That gentleman, the person next to me, should have waited for the waiter to finish and really measured the emotional tone, really, of the people at the table. We all felt uncomfortable because of that. That made us feel bad. We felt bad for the waiter. I know the waiter felt bad. It was just odd. I don't think the guy next to me intended to do it. I think it was just a matter of not understanding to read the emotions of the people involved and then to adapt. So he wasn't paying attention necessarily to that interpersonal dynamic, and he wasn't reading the room. So emotional intelligence is really about understanding your own emotional tone, where you're at, what you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, but also to perceive this in the other person or persons in the room. And when we're doing this, we're able to then regulate our response. So if we're real happy and we're coming into a situation, we're gung-ho, but we pick up the other person might be down, maybe they're in a funk, whatever the case might be, common sense suggests we have to ratchet our emotion down a little bit, match them so we don't shock them, we don't make them feel uncomfortable. We basically try to harmonize the emotional tones. And that's really gets back to respect, it gets back to trust. People want to be accepted. So you have to meet people where they're at from an emotional tone standpoint. It helps build rapport, and it helps really create the foundation for a good relationship. So when the gentleman next to me did this kind of inappropriate timed toast, the toast was very good, by the way, but it was inappropriately timed. The first thing I thought of was, can I trust this guy? Is this someone who I'm going to introduce to someone else? Is he going to do something inappropriate to who I introduce them to? So he kind of had a little bit of a train wreck situation. So if we're able to really take stock of the emotional tones in the room and really regulate our response, maybe take a pause before we respond to somebody, or, if someone's, this is a big part of rapport as well. If someone's speaking really fast and we're speaking really slow, we're obviously not understanding. That's just the way other people operate. Their emotions are ginned up and we want to really communicate with them. So again, it's really about practicing this, noticing it, and being consciously aware of the situation.
I think at times, and this is where I think active listening, we go back to that piece, because if we're really active listening, right? If that guy was active listening in that situation,
Yep.
he would be, it's not just paying attention to what things are being said. Are you hearing what's going on in the room? And this is why the 21 rules, hit it off, 21 rules for mastering the art of science of relationships in life and business. I think this is where it's so powerful, is because you said it, but they're so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, okay, I can have emotional intelligence maybe, but if I'm not an active listener and I think I've got high emotional intelligence, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. And part of understanding someone's emotional tone, where they're at, is making sure you're understanding the intention behind their words. So you can hear words, and if you misinterpret them, you're really not sure what the person intends to say. You can misinterpret the emotion behind it as well. So your attempt to be emotionally intelligent will derail at that point.
There's one thing that the three of us have in common, James, Joe, and myself. 3 J's, by the way. How about that? James, Joe, and Jay. And that is that we don't struggle with our confidence. And rule number 12 is be confident, be compelling.
No.
And it is really true. The science backs this up, right? Talk about the science and why our confidence, if you got low self-esteem, this isn't going to work. So you got to develop this. So talk about confidence and being compelling.
Absolutely. When we're building a relationship with someone, we want them to trust us. Okay, it's foundational for having a good, strong emotional connection. Typically in a relationship, it's going to hopefully be a win-win. So you're going to give something, you're going to take something, the other person's going to do the same. And what the science bears out is when we're confident in ourselves and what we're doing or saying, then people will respond in a way such that they will have trust in us. That's very important. If we don't have confidence, what the science says is the person probably won't trust us as much. We won't be deemed as being as trustworthy as we want. And what the science also shows, actually, it's kind of interesting, that being slightly overconfident is even more effective in gaining trust. Not being cocky, you don't want to do that. You want to come off as a jerk, obviously. But if you're just slightly overconfident, you're really now engendering that massive trust. People are going to feel even more trusting of you. And again, that brings people together. It makes people a little bit more vulnerable to open up because they have that higher level of trust with you. And hopefully you can both get to your goals a little bit faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, James, I don't think you have anything to worry about with your confidence level. Matter of fact, I think you've even been able to surpass that a little bit in terms of, I think you've mastered the slightly confident piece already, James. Just saying that. No comment, James. James Lowe, Jiggy Jaguar. No comment.
Hey, I have been accused a lot of being overconfident, an a-hole, all sorts of different things.
Well, let me just say, I have not.
Most of these lives.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm not gonna say that, but I am going to say this. I noticed in the years that I've known you, I've never known you for a lack of confidence, and I think there's something to be said about this. It's part of your success. I think it is too. Joe, let's talk about be strategic about polarizing topics, because we live in a polarizing society. There is no gray area anymore. At least that's the way I feel, is that there's very little gray area.
Yep.
And so the typical things that we say are off the table, right? We don't talk about politics, religion, and is it sex and family or whatever it may be. There's certain topics. But we just need to be, is it that we can't, or how do we do this in today's climate and make it work?
Right. What's interesting about the various kind of prohibited topics you mentioned, basically, we're human beings, and a lot of people want to talk about those very things, and they can't resist. They're in a situation and they start talking about politics, or whatever that is potentially polarizing, frankly. From a political standpoint, we have such incivility in our political institutions now. Our leaders aren't really providing a good example for anyone right now. And so what that does is it translates back to us, the electorate, and people get into various camps. And so when you're in a conversation with someone, if you're in one of those camps and you meet up with someone who is not in the same camp, that becomes polarizing. People dig in. They may make judgments about you because of that polarized topic that has been brought up. So the whole idea here is to avoid polarizing topics. So certainly, we have a couple of steps here. One is when you meet someone, you're not going to jump into, let's use politics as an example. Who'd you vote for? Don't you hate so-and-so?
Right,
don't
right.
you love so-and-so?
Right.
No. The science says what you're doing is you're basically starting off on the wrong foot, to put it simply. And what you should do is stick to topics, frankly, and this is, like I said, very common sense stuff, but it's backed up by the science, really proves the efficacy of these various intuitive things. Stick to things like baseball, the weather, hometown stuff, things, concerts, music, bands, things that are families, kids, whatever the case might be. Maybe a book that you've read that's really cool and exciting, or a movie you've seen that's really cool and exciting. These are things that are less polarizing, if not polarizing at all. And that's really, if you're trying to hit it off with someone, if you're at a cocktail party, if you say you can talk about politics where there's a high degree of risk there, or stick to, hey, tell me about your family. Where do you live? Things like that. Small talk topics that, small talk is really about nothing.
Right.
And frankly, in the science shows that what is small talk? It's really things that they matter, of course, but it's just to pass the time and to get to know each other. And that's the whole idea of hitting it off. It's part of the process of hitting it off with someone. So we want to establish that rapport. We want to try to find commonality. And frankly, by avoiding these polarizing topics, you're well on your way to do that. Now, here's the thing. When you're in the next conversation, when you meet people, you're observing people, pay attention to how often people do raise polarizing topics. So you have to have a strategy. What do you do? Well, when someone raises a polarizing topic, don't take the bait. Pivot the conversation. It's similar to the rule around disagreement. When you disagree, try to find common ground. And so you have to learn how to pivot a conversation, and it's not that hard to do. Pivot a conversation. And by the way, if someone raises a polarizing topic, unless you just can't find it in yourself to acknowledge what they're saying at the very least, don't disagree with it necessarily. Just acknowledge what you have heard and then move on. Try to reorient the discussion around something that is much less polarizing, something that is based on common values, non-negotiables that you think you both can agree on. But the safety of our families, as an example. Right. All right. These are things that we all agree on. So stick to that stuff.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. It seems that we want things to be very, ones and zeros or yeses and nos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because, and I'm speaking as a psychological professional, I think it's because it makes our world simpler. If we do that, because gray area gets gray. And so when it's not black and white and there's a lot of gray area in between, what happens is we may not be as comfortable there because we don't know what we're really saying. But the truth of the matter is most of our life is in the gray area. Everything that we do is not nearly as cut and dried as we want to believe. It's a lot of nebulous things that happen in our lives. And it's probably how we live most of our life is in the gray area. And I just find it interesting that we want to almost create a polarization, I think, for simplicity's sake. Psychologically, that's how I feel. Go ahead.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, Jay. And I think that, kind of this dualism, it's, one or the other concept has been reinforced in our media, through politics, through our entertainment in some cases. Certainly we're all big sports fans. It's one team against the other. It's a zero-sum game. One's going to win, one's going to lose. So you have these things that we pick up that are, they have come into our beings. We've got this programming growing up, etc. But if we're really thinking about the topic of my book,
right,
basically coming to a situation consciously, methodically, and really being strategic, using the science and these intuitive things to achieve our goals in that relationship. So when you're talking about polarizing topics, you're talking about other things, put that all aside. Stay focused. What do you want out of the relationship? Apply rational self-interest.
Right.
You have an interest. The other person has an interest too. So it's very important to establish rapport. It's why it's very important to achieve trust in a relationship, to certainly listen to what people are saying and understand exactly what they're saying, injecting a little humor in the situation. What these things do, what these rules do, is it provides a toolbox for people. We have rules of the road. We have rules when we sit down to a table to eat. Unless you're me, you wait until everybody else is served before you dig in.
Right.
That's a little bit of humor, but the point is, you have to really sit down and think through, how do you want to approach your relationships going forward? You can do the same old, of course, or you can have a plan of action. And what I've done in the book is I've created a plan of action for everyone. They can take these 21 rules, you can bake a cake with it, and you can go out and you can share all the gifts you have in this world and provide value to people and define authentic goals for yourself, and then help other people achieve their goals and do it efficiently, do it strategically. And this is something that's going to really make us all happier.
His name's Joe Brocato. The book is titled Hit It Off, 21 Rules for Mastering the Art and Science of Relationships in Life and Business. You're listening to me on the Jiggy Jaguar show. By the way, there is a Jiggy Jaguar app that I'm aware of that's out there. And don't let your friends not download the Jiggy Jaguar app, because if you want to catch the past shows, you want to listen to this show, whatever it is, you can do that all on the Jiggy Jaguar app. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's a great way for you to listen to great guests like Joe Brocato and his book, Hit It Off, for sure. So make sure you do that, download, as well as purchase the book, Hit It Off by Joe Brocato. You can find that on bookstores near you. If they don't have it at a bookstore near you, you tell them, get it on the shelf immediately. Go to your library, tell your librarian, why isn't Hit It Off in the library? I want Hit It Off in the library, and they'll get it in the library. Yes, you can go to Amazon. I get it. You can do that, right? But you know what? It helps all of us if you go to the bookstore. So check that out and do that as well. One of the things that's so interesting about this book, Joe, is that I feel like this book is so hyperlinked. So like, it's like you go to one place and then, like we were talking about polarization, but then you go, well, hyperlink that back to rule number 2, think about the end in mind. Because if you think about the end in mind and the relationship, what you want from the relationship, well, then you're not probably going to say anything polarizing. Right. So I mean, it seems so, everything seems so hyperlinked. And then you have exercises for each one of these rules in the back of the book. I don't think we should neglect that either, because these are really important. I've gone through them, and they're really, really, really powerful because they make you think. Talk a little bit about what your thought process was in these exercises that you were trying to help people accomplish in terms of these rules.
I've always, when I read nonfiction books, I always like books where you can learn something on one hand, but then immediately apply it on the other hand. So what I wanted to do in the book is really allow the reader to be able to immediately apply all these rules. So at the very end of the book, it's chock full of questions, exercises, etc., where you can actually take each rule. I provided 5 questions, some direction around each of the rules, and you can fill it in, you can think through it, and you can start strategizing on how you want to go out into the world and implement these things. So you can start right away. It helps you, you learn it and you practice it right away. It's kind of like if you take golf lessons, they teach you something and then you have to go and practice it. If you don't practice it, you're not going to really learn it. And so it's the same thing here. It's not hard to learn,
right?
But you have to actually practice. So I wanted to allow everyone to immediately go ahead and start practicing these things. And it's kind of like muscle memory to a great extent. And you're absolutely right, Jay. It's all hyperlinks. Everything in here is hyperlinked. They all fit together. And you have to think about these things not as isolated topics or rules, but really part of a toolbox. So you're going to pick and choose each tool you need when you need it, but they all kind of revolve around the same concept of really establishing a unique relationship with someone else, one that's difficult, if not impossible, to replace. So learning the science behind these intuitive things, practicing in the exercises, that's the start. And then you go out and you basically implement this in your real life, and you see how much faster you're going to achieve any success that you want.
I love that. Let's dig into a couple more rules here. And I want to talk about this rule 17, give respect to get respect, because I have a thought process on here that occurred to me between the last time you and I talked, which was like 24 hours ago. And I had a thought process here that I wanted to kind of bring along with here. I have always been of the belief, and I think I can scientifically prove it, that we don't earn respect, we choose to give it. And that it's our choice to give respect. And I did this once with my students in my college culture and diversity class. I said, you know, we always talk about earning respect.
Mhm.
And so I said, create me a list of everything that I need to do to earn your respect. Right. And so they wrote down all these things that I was supposed to do to earn their respect. Right. And then I wrote all those things down and I said, if I do all those things, isn't it true that you still have the choice of whether you want to respect me or not? Even if I do them all, you doesn't mean that you have to respect me. By the same token, I don't have to do any of them, and you could choose to respect me. And I thought about how you wrote this. Give respect, which implies choice, to get respect. It's really beautifully written. And I didn't give it as much thought as I have over the last 24 hours of thinking about it. But it's really an important concept that you're bringing up here. So let's talk about it, because we oftentimes misinterpret that word respect.
You hit it again right on the head with the concept of actually giving this. It's a conscious choice. It's using critical thinking. But what is respect? You know, I learned about respect around the kitchen table growing up. You know, I come from an Italian background, and respect is very important. And what that means, at least as I have defined it over my lifetime, is really, and what the science really bears out to support this, is acknowledging that the other person is a human being. The other person has needs, concerns, emotions. The other person wants to feel accepted. The other person may have a viewpoint that's different from ours. They need to be respected. They need to be accepted for what they believe.
Right.
And we unfortunately, I think we've lost the art of respect in society. You know, if we disagree with someone, we think that they're maybe not to be respected. And that's the wrong mindset to have. We're all going to disagree on various things from time to time. We can't go around, if we disagree with somebody, we're not going to give our respect to them because they have a different viewpoint. We obviously see this commonly in the political situation, right, where people disagree on who they're going to vote for, or the political issue, and all of a sudden they're enemies or they're family members that don't talk anymore. That's the wrong way to do it. I mean, again, going back to what are we doing here? We're trying to build better relationships.
Right.
So if we run into a situation where we want to get respect from people, which should be the situation in every relationship, we want the other person to give us their respect. We have to give the respect to them. We have to acknowledge that what they're thinking, what they're feeling is legitimate, whether we agree with it or not. It's just the way they think. And that's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Some of my friends that I have right now, I don't agree with them on a lot of different things. But we have, for whatever reason, common values, common non-negotiable, ideas, things that tie us together. And that's the beautiful part of it. So we have to really focus on that. And again, going back to the disagreement, find common ground rule, this is a big part of showing respect, because we're not going to agree with everybody. And a lot of times we think that the other person doesn't need our respect because they don't share our viewpoints with a lot of things. And a lot of times we really don't remember that everybody's looking to feel accepted. So we have to be proactive again in giving that respect, acknowledging them, thanking them if they do something nice. There's another rule in the book about, care through your actions. Okay. So, this plays into this hyperlinking, right, of the rules. So how do you give respect to people? Okay, so the care through your actions rule is all about, if you care for somebody, you have empathy, you concerned about someone, it's great to say, I'm sorry, I feel your pain, I'm putting myself in your shoes. That's all well and good. But how do you truly give respect to that individual, what they're going through? Well, the science says through a concrete action to show you care. So you might have empathy for someone, but now you're actually taking that the next step. Okay, you're coming up with a concrete action that you can take. Quick example of this is if someone has suffered a death in the family, a grave loss like that, you should say, I'm sorry. my deepest condolences. That's the appropriate thing to say. And you should say that. But you can go a step further, take a concrete action. And it could be showing up at the service. It could be sending flowers to the service. These are things that are concrete actions to really drive home the fact that you acknowledge the other person's loss, you care about them, but you're also going that extra step. And what the science shows is that is actually going to create this bond. It's all got to be sincere, by the way. If you're not sincere about it, don't do it. If you're sincere about it, it creates this bond that goes one step further to creating a unique relationship, which I define as one that's difficult, if not impossible, to replace. And that's the goal of every interaction. We want to create every relationship. We want to create these unique relationships. So the other person doesn't want to bail. They want to stay in the relationship, has an incentive to stay in the relationship just as much as you do.
By the way, that's rule number 13. If you want to show that you care, take action. That's rule number 13. I just want to say this about respect and just add to that, because I had one of those this just in moments in my brain that just popped into my head. And, you know, when we start seeing other human beings as having value, right? When we start looking at other people and go, you know what, this person has a value. They've been placed on this earth for a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is, but everybody's got a purpose, right? And I don't know what that is, but immediately the fact that you've joined me as part of the human race gives you value. And when we can start there and saying that every human being is valuable, and because they're valuable, and because they have a purpose, and because everybody has something unique to offer and their unique gifts, talents, and abilities that combines like no others, it's easy for me when I think that way to immediately choose to say, I have total respect for that person, regardless of what they say, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of that. And it's such a great place to start, because I don't have to be in agreement with you, but gosh, I sure do respect you. I can even respect beliefs that I don't agree with, because you're so passionate about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always an easy thing for us to do. I'm not going to say that, but man, if we started there, how many bridges do we stop burning?
And think about it this way. If you are in a relationship and you say something that the other person doesn't agree with, you know they don't share your viewpoint. But if the other person looks you in the eye, uses appropriate eye contact, has been listening to you consciously, and understands what you have just said, and says to you, okay, I understand that. I can respect that. Mm-hmm. You're not agreeing to it. Mm-hmm. But what you said to that person is, I value you. Mm-hmm. You're a human being. I'm not here to judge you. I am not here to come down with a hammer on you. Now, if the other person says that to you, what are you going to think? Wow, I like this person.
Right.
I do. I really like this person. And now you're well on your way to establishing that unique relationship. Right. And frankly, you know, if you have rational self-interest, and let's say you have a goal for the relationship, and you want something from that individual, and you're going to provide something of value to them, which is very important to have a win-win, the other person's going to be much more likely to give it to you.
Right.
Because you have valued them.
Right. All right. I want to finish up with one here, and it's number 19. Because you really got me thinking here, and I am really making a more disciplined, intentional effort that whenever I see this, I'm going to do this. And that is rule 19, socially reward through your sincere praise. And I think I'm pretty good at it, but I think that sometimes I get in a hurry and I don't say it, even though the person did a great job. They did something awesome, you know, but you get in a hurry and you just go, and then maybe you give them a little text and you go, oh, by the way, you did a great job. Whereas looking them in the eye and really saying to them face to face with all the respect in the world, going, I just want to tell you, you did an amazing job today. It's a huge thing, isn't it? And science proves it out.
It does. It's so pragmatic of a concept. The science better bear it out because it's so obvious, right? We see this a lot, unfortunately, in business. People leaders within organizations, companies, don't take advantage of the very simple concept that we're talking about to basically pat their people on the back and say, you know what, good job. I just want to tell you, one of the biggest reasons why, and when we suffered through the great attrition, there were a lot of studies that started to come out about why people leave their jobs. And one of the biggest reasons was because they don't feel valued by their employers. It's not the money they're making. It's not their title. They just don't feel like their bosses are the leaders within the organization value them because they haven't heard it. They haven't heard it. And a lot of people think they can throw money at employees and staff, etc. But at the end of the day, people want to be respected. They want to be valued. Right. And so, if people, leaders, and organizations were more conscious about these things and really remembered to do it, you've massively increased the likelihood of establishing the type of relationship with that employee. Let's say we're using employer-employee as an example. You've massively increased the loyalty of that individual because they're going to feel like this is a home for me. And you've massively reduced the likelihood they're going to leave. And believe me, if you're running an organization, the replacement cost is much more expensive, much higher than retention. So it's in every people leader's best interest to employ that particular rule in particular, reward people with praise, and you're going to end up getting a lot of trust back, a lot of loyalty back. And that's very important in the business context, as it is in the personal context as well.
We've had a big struggle trying to make this happen, and finally, for the last 35 minutes, we were able to actually have a solid conversation, and it was absolutely fantastic. This book is phenomenal, and I am serious when I say to people about Hit It Off. And I know that you have a passion also for the mental health community as well, and I know that's a big passion of yours. This book is literally for everyone at any stage of your life, and it's also for, I don't care if it's B2B. A lot of times B2B people say, well, relationships don't matter. But I know B2B is business to business, but it's not the business that makes the decision of whether they're going to purchase your service or your product. At the end of the day, it's people.
Exactly.
And and you say this in the introduction. I'm going to paraphrase it, but we were created for relationship, to connect with each other. And it doesn't matter what industry we're in, building relationships in the right way are ultimately important to our success, aren't they?
They are, and by applying critical thinking and mindfulness to that interpersonal dynamic. So basically, if people take one thing away from this discussion and from my book, is change the way we think about relationships. Don't accept what we've done to date. Be proactive. Effectively communicate. Assess information very carefully. Leave your prejudgments at the door as much as you can. Be in the moment. Be mindful. Utilize these 21 rules to massively increase the likelihood of achieving all your goals in life and in business.
Beautifully said. James, what would you like to contribute to this discussion? You're sitting back there listening. I saw you taking notes. How do you want to wrap this thing up?
I've been taking notes like nobody's business here. Joe, you are an incredible speaker, my friend. And Jay, I am so glad we were able to get a good 30 to 35 minutes with Joe here. And I also think that it is amazing that me and Jay can just roll with the punches, and it doesn't matter what technology throws at us. We just never missed a beat. We just get so bravo to everybody. That's a hell of a deal. That's nice.
That's awesome. That's sincere praise right there for sure. Awesome. So
Yes.
James, how do we wrap this? How do we wrap this show up for everybody?
Well, let's do this. Joe, let's start with you. How do we get in touch with you online and social media, buy your book, all this stuff, my friend?
Well, I would love for your viewers and your listeners to follow me on social media. It's Joe Brocato Official. Follow me. I post a lot, and I repost things. So I think there's a lot of value for everybody there. I enjoy it a lot. You can visit my website, hititoffthebook.com. We've got merchandise. We've got information you're going to love, a lot of detail about the book as well. A couple of things that you can download for free. Visit the website. And then, we have an audiobook as well, by the way. We have links to everything on the website, everywhere you can buy the book. And if anybody's going to be in the Chicagoland area, mid-October, on Saturday, October 14th at 3 p.m., we're going to do a great book signing at Barber's Bookstore. It's the oldest independent bookstore in the Chicagoland area. And it's going to be at their Yorktown Mall location. So it's October 14th at 3 p.m., Barber's Bookstore at Yorktown Mall. And if anybody's in the Chicagoland area and wants to stop by, I would love to meet you and sign the book.
I know this. I've got my signed copy right here. I do. I have my signed copy from Joe. So I'm very excited about my signed copy. So I have my Joe Brocato signed copy. As a matter of fact, it says 4J. It's right there. 4J. There it is. So you get your signed copy for sure. Yeah, but listen, people want to get a hold of me. It's Coach Jay Izzo on Instagram, Jay Izzo on LinkedIn, all over. It's IZSO is the last name. I know, strange spelling, but what can I say? But yeah, you could go Coaching Mavericks. Listen to the show, A New Direction, on every possible podcast, including AM FM 24/7, and on DBTV. Can watch the show. Just if you got Roku and Amazon Fire devices, it's available there, and it's on cable companies around the world. So different places. So you can watch A New Direction with Coach Jay on DBTV. So I highly suggest that you do that. And every now and then you can find me on the Jiggy Jaguar show, where I get the privilege and pleasure to be with my friend James Lowe, Jiggy Jaguar, doing the show. So that's how you can get a hold of me. James?
Well, gentlemen, thanks for making this happen. And Jay, just thanks for being such a total pro today, my friend, that we were able to get this going and make this work. And I guess without further ado, I will see you guys later. And as a rapper told me one time, peace and chicken grease. So
Okay,
that is the show.
Now, guys, I guess it's the show, but guys, don't hang up as we end the show. Let's just do a little debrief. So everybody watching, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Check out the podcast. I'll have edited it to take out some of this stuff. But you can listen on Jiggy Jaguar app. Download it. You need to. I promise. Ciao, everybody.
Take care.